Okay, settle in. If you know me, you know I love old movies. You know I love kooky, goofy cult movies, horror movies, sci-fi movies, and things like that. And I tend to go on at length about films that some might not feel like they are worthy of at length. Sure, I'll talk about Last Temptation of Christ in 3 minutes, but give me something about the Three Stooges, and you're going to get a 40-minute video. So let's all hunker down and have fun with this. This is Robot Monster. Yeah, 1953's Robot Monster, originally in 3D, brought back to life in glorious 3D from the 3D film archives at BayView Entertainment on this new release. Now, what I'm reviewing here is the Blu-ray. I believe there is also a DVD of this. This is a goofy movie. This is a film that has long been on the list of, Golden Turkey Awards, World's Worst Movies, cult movie stuff, horror host stuff, Roman. Do you want to? Okay, what is this film about? It's about an hour. It's a really, really short film. Basically the storyline here is the basic storyline without giving anything away. And there are actually surprises and twists in this, so I'm not gonna mess it up for you if you've never seen Robot Monster. Aliens eradicate all life on planet Earth, save for basically this one small family and a guy. Now, I don't remember if the guy was associated with the family or if he meets the family, but anyway, this is shot in and around Bronson Canyon, Bronson Cavern in the greater Los Angeles, California area, which is a famous or infamous hole in the rock that many, many films have used. The Batmobile comes out of it. It doubles as the Batcave in the Batman 66 show. It was used in movies from Fred Olin Ray in the 80s and 90s back to the 50s and old serials and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, aliens eradicate all life on Earth. Roman, which is essentially a gorilla suit with like a space helmet on it with two antennas coming out of the top, is left on Earth or sent to Earth to make sure the job is finished. He finds out that this family and this other guy are still alive, and it is his job to eradicate them so that the Roman, and maybe Ro women, Ro people, can control the Earth. He communicates through a video screen with his superior on another planet, and there are a lot of bubbles involved. For some reason, basically Roman's digs is the opening of the cave, and there's this video screen on one side, and on the other side is some like radio equipment piled on a table, and somewhere there's a bubble machine blowing bubbles. Why bubbles? Well, guess what? They look really cool in 3D. Did I mention this was 3D? It's in 3D. So this presentation of that's pretty much all there is to the story. And this was one of, I want to say, the extras on this are really great. I want to say it was like one of the first 7, perhaps, 3D films made in the early 50s during the 3D boom, which only lasted a couple of years and I guess was only about 50 films originally. Now, when people think 3D now, they think red, blue glasses. That was not how 3D was done originally. 3D was originally 2 prints, one for the left eye and one for the right eye, 35 millimeter film prints that would run interlocked, which means they were totally in sync. The exact same frame was hitting each eye on each print at the same time, the left and the right frame. And projectors would run in sync, and you would wear polarized glasses, which are similar looking to what you would wear if you went to see a 3D movie in the theater now. So they look like little slightly tinted glasses. And the effect was great for the most part. The red-blue 3D that people talk about came along a lot later when theaters, it was a couple things. To send a 3D film out, it was 2 prints that had to be shipped. So twice the amount of film that had to be shipped. And you had to keep them in sync. And if you missed a frame, you either had to put a black slug in there. Like if there was film damage, it was hard to keep them in sync and all that. And the theaters over time switched from 2 projectors, where for a normal film, you would switch from one projector to the other projector every 20 minutes. They switched to a single projector with a platter system, which allowed you to take the entire film print, all the reels, cut them all together into one big film and run them through. Well, that kills two projector 3D. So the red and blue came along it was always around for comic books and print things, but it really came along for film in a later era, maybe in the 60s, 70s, I want to say. And that's where you got the films with the red and blue. And a lot of these older films were reprinted. If you go to see Creature from the Black Lagoon on 35 millimeter now, 99% of the time it's going to be a print with the red blue. The drive-in I work at, we're showing It Came from Outer Space in 3D very soon. That's the red blue because it's just what was created. It's what's available. In the 80s, 3D came along and it was a different system. We're going to get you into the history of 3D here. In the 80s, it was a different system. that used a prism, and it was an over-under system where the left and the right eye were over and under each other on the same piece of film, the same film frame, let's say. And this prism attachment to the single projector lens would combine that, and that's if you saw Friday the 13th 3 or Jaws 3D or Amityville 3 or any of that. Again, second quick burst of 3D in the 80s, that's how you saw it. But anyway, that's a lot of digression. We're talking about robot monsters. So how is the movie? It's goofy. It's silly. It's not a great film. It's very short. It's preceded on this disc with what it was originally preceded by, which was this comedy short, which is really just a nightclub comedian doing his act and some very subtle 3D effects, called Stardust Gets in Your Eyes. And I believe is it Slip Slavin, Skip Skaven, Slick Slavin, which is a great name. Guessing not his given name. Slick Slavin does this celebrity impersonation, sings a little song and all that. And it was really done to pad out the length of this feature so that it would be long enough for the theaters. So on this disc, it opens with Slick Slavin doing this thing in 3D. The way this disc is laid out is that you can see it in anaglyph 3D, which is the red blue or red cyan 3D or red green that you're used to seeing for home video releases, or if you have a setup that can play actual 3D Blu-rays on an actual 3D television or monitor or a projector, that's on here too. So they give you both options. They've done a lot of work. The 3D Film Archive has done a lot of work to make this look good in 3D and make sure the 3D works. And in a lot of cases, the releases the 3D Archive are doing now, the restorations they're doing, the 3D actually works better than it did when these films were originally released. They fix a lot of the innate problems that were present in the original thing. So I don't have a 3D TV. I wish I did. I would love it. I've got some discs that have that capability, and I love 3D movies. So, but I don't love anaglyph because generally the two colors kind of work against things, and if anything was originally in color, that doesn't work so well because the color in the original material kind of competes with the red and the blue of the glasses. But this worked pretty well, I must say. And the way the disc is laid out is really cool. You can choose to watch it in 3D or 2D. If you choose 3D and anaglyph, suddenly that main menu you're looking at is in 3D. And there's a lot of 3D content on here. These guys do a great job at preservation of 3D and education about 3D. And if you get almost anything that the 3D Film Archive releases, you get extra stuff too. So anyway, the movie is a silly movie. It's a campy. It's fun. It's short. The 3D effects in it are very good. There's great depth. There's a couple of protrusion effects going on, which are really cool. And to me, if you don't do that, I always feel like if a movie is in 3D, give me 3D. Be as gimmicky as you want. Some people look at the 3D movies and they're like, it's always something coming out at you. And I'm like, yeah, that's excellent. I want an effect. Like most modern 3D movies are not shot in 3D. They're post-converted to 3D. Some can look good, but 99% of the time I go to see a converted 3D film, I don't even notice the effect. Like I notice the effect under the titles, and that's usually about it. So it's usually not really worth it to see most post-converted new 3D movies. Some are good, but a lot, they're not shot for 3D. They're not shot with the idea that your eyes and brain can perceive the depth. It's quick cuts, it's shaky camera, it's close camera. It's everything you don't want to do to get the 3D effect across. We're talking here about a movie from the early days of 3D where they didn't do all that kind of stylistic stuff anyway, but they also wanted people to get the 3D effect. So they had multiple planes of depth, and they had the bubble machine going, and they had the occasional thing sticking out. And it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie, and it's not a major time commitment. It's an hour. So as I say, this is set up so that you can watch it with a proper 3D setup, or you can watch it on any system with the anaglyph. It does, I'll show you the package. So that's the disc. I never know how the focus is going to work. That's the disc, 70th anniversary edition. The front and the back, you get a little info. You crack it open, and hey, what do you got there? You got your own complimentary pair of 3D glasses. So if you're watching it alone like me, it's great. If you're watching it with friends, they're kind of host. And on the inside, we've got all the extras. And I'm going to do what I don't normally do, and that's actually read from this because the extras are there's so many. You're either looking at me doing this or you're looking at me looking down. So this is interesting. This is a great release. I love this release. This is one I've sent a review copy, but I'm definitely keeping this, and I would recommend this to anybody who is a fan of old movies, sci-fi movies, campy movies, kitschy movies, 3D movies. Certainly it's a historical artifact, and they treat it as such. The one thing I will say though is the extras are a little weird in how they are presented. they're presented as though you would be watching them in the old days on a videotape or a Laserdisc, in that you hit extras and they just play all the way through. And they're individual different things, but they play all the way through. Now, they are chaptered, so you can jump from one to the next, but it's weird to me in this day and age that you would throw on a bonus features section of a Blu-ray or a DVD, and you can't just hit the button for the thing you specifically want to see. So anyway, we have 2D and 3D bonus features. The 2D, I'll read what it says here and comment accordingly. You get the original, you get a 3D trailer. These are the 3D bonus features. You get a 3D trailer for this film. It's newly created trailer, so it's recreating the old titles and things like that, but which normally I don't like, but it's in 3D and it looks great and it's razor sharp. So I'll give it that. We have Memories of a Pooped Out Pinwheel. Greg Moffett. This is the guy who played the little kid in the movie, gives his memories of working on the film. And he's got a very good, seems like a really nice guy. He's got a very good sense of humor of it. Travels Through Time and Space. This is a vintage slide presentation with stereoscopic anthropologist Hilary Hess. This is really cool. It opens with an ad for stereoscopic cameras, that consumer cameras that people could buy, still cameras. And then it just shows you a series of them in perfect quality. One of them even features Jerry Lewis, which is interesting. Bob Furmanek, who's the head of the 3D Film Archive and spearheaded this whole campaign to get this released in all of these 3D films, he used to be Jerry Lewis's archivist, so he had access to that stuff. But it's all just really cool, well done slices of American life from normal people and Jerry Lewis from like the 50s, 60s into the 90s. And they talk about, it's just a very interesting, as it says, anthropological look at these slides. And I could have watched a full disc of this kind of stuff. It was really cool. Side Streets of Hollywood 3D insert. This is an 8-minute insert with Dance of the Blonde Slave's Revenge and Madonna and Her Bubbles, presented for the first time in polarized 3D, or anaglyph is the way I watched it. 4K scan of the original 35mm left-right camera negative. So these were just two shorts that originally played where 3D movies showed somewhere, and they're just like, they're saucy, you know. It's like a dancing girl and a dancing girl. A couple of like maybe burlesque shorts. They might have been shown in burlesque houses back then. Adventures in 3D, a newly restored Golden Age 3D comic book presented in association with Carl Shekel at Carl's Comics. This was really neat too, and this is something I hope is a harbinger of things to come. This again was a little weird to see in this day and age presented this way, because they basically say each one of these things will be up for 5 seconds, use the pause button to enjoy it. And it's just like, it's the thing that normally you would have a still step thing on your TV, but it presents several vintage Harvey comics that were done in 3D on your TV screen. So obviously the bigger your TV, the better this works. I found the dialogue bubbles a little hard to read, and I was looking at this on a pretty huge TV, but either it was the anaglyph or the TV or whatever it was, or the size of the image, I found the word bubbles a little hard to read, so I just was appreciating the artwork, but it's really effective 3D, and it's basically the full contents of 1 or 2 3D comics from the early 50s, along with all the ads and stuff like that. I would love, and I really hope that Carl's Comics is going to release these in book form, because I would absolutely buy books of old 3D comics from the 50s. Then you have Return to Bronson Canyon. This is from 2006. This is Bob Burns, one of the legendary gorilla suit actors. He was Tracy the Gorilla on the old Ghostbusters, not that Ghostbusters, the old 70s Filmation Ghostbusters live action show that predated the Ghostbusters everybody else knows. And massive film collector, or film prop collector, Bob's Basement. There's a great book called It Came from Bob's Basement. If you can ever find that, it's an amazing collection. He was like Forrest Ackerman in that he was friends with a lot of special effects people and got a lot of original props. I believe he has the original King Kong armature, the thing that was inside the King Kong stop motion figure that was used in the original 33 Kong. He's got the time machine. He's got all kinds of amazing stuff, and he owns Roman's helmet from this film. So it's him in that helmet going back to Bronson Canyon from exactly that one opening, Bronson Cave, where they shot this, and it's shot in 3D on video, and it's fun. It's just a little joking around, but it's a good time. And he's there with some of the 3D Film Archive people. He's there with Bob Furmanek and Jack Thigston and Bob Burns, Kathy Burns, and it's cute. It's fun. Then you have Whatever Happened to Roman, produced by Stereo Club of Southern California. It's a short film by Ray Zone and stars Eric Kurland as Roman. And it's basically this a jokey thing of a female reporter showing up at the suburban house of Roman and asking where he's been all these years. And it's in 3D, so it's cute. It's not very long. And then there's a before and after restoration demo where they showed you what the materials they had to work with were for this restoration on one side of the screen. And I love this kind of thing. I'll watch this stuff endlessly. And on the other side of the screen is what your final restoration is. So that's pretty cool. The 2D extras, there is a commentary with Greg Moffett, the youthful star of the film, Mike Ballou, Eric Kurland, and Lawrence Kaufman. That's very interesting, and it's funny because Greg Moffett is totally, he sees this as this dumb movie that he made when he was a kid that perplexingly has an audience still, and the other guys are like super respectful about this film, but they also are super respectful about the technique and how it was shot and how good the 3D actually is in this silly little movie. Then there's one called Was I a Man, a new song by the Other Favorites. It plays during the post-feature restoration credits. There's a memorabilia gallery, which is stills of a bunch of newspaper ads and things like that for the film posters. There's Bela Lugosi on You Asked For It, which is a restoration of a 16 millimeter, I believe, kinescope of the old 50s live TV show. And it's Lugosi in a Dracula cape, basically doing a magic trick. And it's just a rare, interesting piece of footage that's been restored. And they used this process to sort of try to make it look like live video, which I've seen. It was done on the Ed Sullivan Shows with Elvis release, where they had film kinescopes of old live video footage, and they do this thing where they kind of speed up the frame rate a little bit to make it look a little bit more fluid. They do that here, and it's mostly notable because it's on here because Lugosi talks about an upcoming 3D film he's planning to make with Ed Wood that never got made. 2D bonus features in addition. This is another block of bonus features. Saving Slick from 2023. This talks about Bob Furmanek talks about finding the original reels for this film and the original Stardust Gets in Your Eyes, and then finding Slick Slavin and talking to him and bringing him out for some screenings. And you see some interviews with this guy who did this one-off. Probably didn't take him much more than an hour or so to shoot this, if even that, back in the early 50s, and it's being restored. You get the original Coming Attractions trailer. You get 3D movies in Los Angeles, specially curated collection from Jack Theakston contains original 2D Coming Attraction trailers for the 3D films that would have been in theaters when Robot Monster came out back in 1953. That's cool, and it's just cool to see trailers for some movies I wasn't aware of that were 3D movies. Monster from Mars, 1956, I'm reading through this. Monster from Mars, which was the reissue title for this film. The original titles for that are presented here. Joe Dante's Trailers from Hell segment on this film. If you don't know it, Trailers from Hell is an excellent website where filmmakers talk about old movies they like by basically giving a commentary for the trailer. It's Joe Dante doing that for this film, although it is the Monster from Mars title. Mistakes and Innovations, Bob Furmanek describes the original Day for Night footage and Phil Tucker's innovative use of double film, aka 3D blinky, which basically, if you close one eye or the other, you can see two different images. And I did notice that while watching the film, and I thought that was kind of unusual. Then you have Robot Monster Diaries. It's just an ad for a book, basically. Rescuing Roman, documentary short by Sean Trunk about how the accidental discovery of two forgotten 35 millimeter prints in 1990 saved the only complete footage. That's Bob Furmanek talking about how he found the film. And yeah, this is a really, really excellent release. I loved this. I mean, I remember seeing this movie on MTV. This was the one thing that wasn't on here that I have to see if it's on YouTube or something. I remember seeing this as a kid on MTV. They showed it on Halloween night in red, blue, 3D. And I guess for the longest time, huge sections of the 3D aspect of this film were lost. So big sections of the film, even when it was presented in 3D on TV or video, were still in 2D. I remember coming home from trick-or-treating, it might have been like 82, 83, something like that, and MTV was showing this in 3D. And in between commercial breaks or going in and out of commercials, they had this new footage that I remember it being the VJs, but it might have been somebody else, that was shot on video that was also in 3D, where it was like people in spacesuits and they were like young, and I don't know. It's really obscure in my brain, but that's how I first saw Robot Monster after reading about it forever. And then it used to be on things like, the Cannes Film Festival or all kinds of TV stuff, but I've never seen it looking this good. It has never looked this good because this is a new restoration of the film for its 70th anniversary. It is, dare I say, essential if you're a fan of film history, 3D history, schlock movie history, sci-fi history. Robot Monster on Blu-ray in 3D. And you also can watch it all in 2D, by the way. If you don't want to watch it in 3D, there is the 2D option here. From BayView Entertainment.